What's up, Internet? Welcome back to Sega Break. This is Linzer22. There's been a lot of discussion over the years of whether or not Sega should come back with the Dreamcast 2. And as a Sega fan, I'd love that to happen. But realistically, I don't think it would ever be a good idea. Now, I say ever, but I mean, who knows? Maybe there might be one way they could get in. And I actually made a video a long time ago about a way they can sneak back into the hardware markets, but I'll get to that after I kind of discuss why they shouldn't. And I think some examples you can look at that prove why they shouldn't are examples that have already happened, which are the Intellivision Amico, the AtariVCS, and what was that thing called again? Oh yeah, the Ouya. So I'll start with the Ouya because that's a fairly old thing. The Ouya came out and it was actually a hit at first, and many people were very much interested in it. But the problem was it was way too easy to pirate on that thing, and nobody was really making any system sellers on it, and it was basically Android. So that thing flopped. It just became paperweights, and we never got anything more from that. I've personally never used the Ouya, and I was kind of excited for it at first. But when it came down to it, I didn't really want to shell out cash for an Android box. And the controller looked kind of comfortable, but not enough where I'm like, I need to try this controller. I need to get this controller in my hands. So the Ouya came and went. It was an example of why there's not as many consoles in the markets as there, I guess, potentially could be. And it seems like it's always going to be 3 consoles going at it, and that's pretty much it. And for a while it was Nintendo, Sega, and Atari. Then it became Nintendo, Sega, and then PlayStation came, so it was Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation. And then Sega dropped out of the hardware market, as you all know, obviously, and it became Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox because Microsoft jumped in right when Sega went under. Interesting tidbit is Microsoft was thinking about buying Sega, but ultimately decided they didn't need to, and I think that was a correct decision on their part. But I think if they did buy Sega at the time, they probably would have had a more successful original Xbox. But honestly, I don't think that was their main goal. I think they wanted the iteration after that to be successful. The Xbox, I was gonna say won, but the original Xbox seemed like it was more of a test bed. But anyways, getting back to these companies coming into the console markets. Now, Ouya is a bit different from the other two because it's not like a company name coming back into the hardware market. That was a brand new name, so I don't even know if I should have added it, but it kind of felt samey or same-ish to me, so I felt it relevant. Now, this next one is an interesting one, and that is the AtariVCS. Now, this one was pretty much proven to be a scam from the very start. Except I have a feeling, I have a hunch. Now I've done quite a few videos on this. I followed this extensively. I never planned on getting a VCS, but I was very curious about this because if Atari pulls it off, then maybe Sega has a chance. But of course, as you know, Atari didn't really pull it off. They, at the very minimum, at least they released a console. They had a unique controller, and I want to say exclusives, but they have no exclusives. But at least they had an interesting strategy. They sold this console as a hybrid PC. You could just get a PC and consoleize it, but I guess that does take work. But at the same time, the VCS doesn't have much. So there's another example of I would consider a flop. Now, that being said, I actually do have the VCS joystick, and I've been trying to get this thing to work with RetroPie. It technically works fine with the RetroPie if I just use it as a joystick with the buttons. It can play any console that had at least like 3 buttons and a select button. Well, sorry, a start, select button, and 3 buttons. because there's an A button, a B button, and then there's this Atari button, which you can actually map to just a regular button on the RetroPie. And then there's a start and select. And it works out totally fine. The only thing is I was mostly excited for the spinning function, but the way they programmed the actual spinner in that controller does not work all that well. And honestly, it could use some heft. That thing feels light and cheap. And if Atari ever plan on making a second iteration and fixed all these issues, I would probably buy it because I actually like that controller. Here's the thing, I don't have a VCS and I don't plan on ever getting a VCS. So there's that. Now let's get to the meat of it all. I think out of all the companies that had potential, or at least I thought, it was the Amico, the Intellivision Amico. Here is the Intellivision's dramatic return into the console markets. I never even really cared about Intellivision. I had this compilation called Intellivision Lives, and it was fun. I never thought too much about it. I mean, I preferred my other compilation games, that being Namco Museum and any of the, obviously, Sega compilations that I had. But it was a thing that existed, sure. And then this guy named Tommy Tallarico, which has a familiar name, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized it was because Mega64 did a video with them a long time ago, because they were advertising video game music live or something like that. And honestly, he was a pretty good salesman. He knew how to pitch his product, and I can't say I was entirely excited for the controller because the idea of the buttons being on the edges don't sound entirely comfortable, but the idea that this thing was going to cost $149, there are no microtransactions, all the games are $10 and exclusive, so they're designed to be system sellers, and it's a family-friendly product, and has a unique control method that no other console has. And I was interested. And yes, you can say that a lot of the games down there you could possibly port to other consoles, but the marketplaces are just different and saturated. It's not a cohesive product. But here's the thing. That project has gone from its theory, and which is all the entire concept that I mentioned that was actually interesting, and has gone through so much hell. They've gone through a bunch of investors. They have to pay $100 to just one investor for every console sold. A lot of the quote exclusives are no longer exclusives, or even on the what's it called, Intellivision or whatever. So that tells me it's a lot harder to make a console than Tallarico envisioned. And that gets to my point. If Sega were to get into the hardware market, there would need to be a huge investment from somewhere, and they would have to have huge expectations. See, originally Tallarico mentioned that he only needed to sell, like, I don't remember, it was like a low number. It was like 20,000 consoles, and he's fine. Like, there's profit or something like that. Clearly, if he has all this debt in the company, like, that's not the case anymore. And then they're also talking about the console being like, what was it, $249, $299? Yeah, no. And then the games are no longer $10 each, they're $20 each. Okay, you look at those games, and yes, they look like mobile games, but they're $10 games, and if they're designed well because they're system sellers, then they're probably gonna be fun and good. But now you're talking about $20 games that look like mobile games, and you have to pay for a $300 console just to experience them. And we don't even know if, like, the controllers are even fun as it is. But anyways, I don't want to go on a tangent about the Intellivision. I just wanted to bring that up to kind of close the case on this. Sega is not going to go back in the hardware business. In order for Sega to become a console manufacturer again, they would either have to have some crazy investment from somewhere that's like, I don't know, an angel investor or something. I don't know how that stuff works. Maybe they would have to merge with a company that actually has all this capital to actually make this happen and reason to make it happen. Or they get bought out by a big company that wants to release a console. a company big enough to just buy Sega for their IP so that they have stuff to put on their console. A great example people are always saying is Microsoft. Microsoft buy Sega. And honestly, ethically, I think we should stop encouraging all these companies just consolidating, because it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for the industry. Let's be real about that. But my biggest fear is a company like Amazon picking up Sega. No way. That would honestly terrify me. Or worst yet, Facebook. They look at Sega and they're like, let's just pick up Sega, buy them, and then boom, Sega, or not Sega, Sonic and all these exclusives are now exclusives. All this IP that Sega owns is now exclusive to the MetaQuest. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Oculus Quest changed its name to MetaQuest. Why? I don't know. It still worries me because I've never seen Apple actually get heavy into games. They always seem to be into like those mobile games. But if Apple were to release a game console and they were to buy Sega, then Sonic would be next to an Apple. And honestly, that looks pretty cool. I like Apple products. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't want anyone to buy Sega. I'd rather them just stand on their own. Now, really quick, before I move on, I do want to mention something kind of shady that seems to be going on with, or not going on, that kind of went on with the start of the VCS project and Intellivision project. I almost forgot about it. I kind of want to mention it before moving on. So it seems like a lot of these projects are started by scam artists. And I mean, I don't want to accuse anyone of anything because I don't know. I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. But I mean, reading everything that I've read, reading other people's speculation, I kind of want to throw some stuff out there. So the AtariVCS was actually a brainchild of not the Atari company, but of this guy. Let me try to remember his name. Okay, so it was Fergal Mac. That's his name. I actually did a video about this, and I'll leave that in the description. It has poor quality, but I enjoyed making it. Okay, so if you're curious, you can learn more. But basically, Fergal Mac is a brainchild of the AtariVCS, or Atari coming back into the console market. He originally started scamming people with the Atari Watch. So it's very clear that he knows what he's doing. He's just starting up these Kickstarters with these brand names. And you know what? He's probably tricking these companies into thinking that these products are legitimate and that they could happen. Because interestingly enough, a year or two after the AtariVCS was, the Atari Box was announced, Fergal Mac was kicked off. And then he started complaining about how he was kicked off the team or whatever. But he was still going to collect royalties off of it or something like that. I don't exactly know. Although interestingly enough, they changed the name when that happened to AtariVCS. So I wonder if the stipulation of the contract only mentions the Atari Box, not an Atari console. So, but anyways, I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. So that's interesting. So there's this con artist who's obviously getting messy with this brand, and then Atari, I personally think, I don't actually know, kicks him off because they realize this guy scammed us, but we have no choice to actually release a thing. So let's just release a computer and call it a console. I don't know. Now you look at the Intellivision thing. I don't know specific names because I didn't really research this. I saw this all on Reddit. If you go to if you go to Intellivision_Amico or something like that, r/Intellivision_Amico, you will see a lot of posts of people just digging into these SEC filings, which I don't know anything about, and that's not the point of what I wanted to talk about. They bring up that the current CEO was part of the ColecoVision Chameleon. I think that's what it was called. I don't really care, but it's basically a scam Kickstarter, just like all of them. And it's the same concept, actually. Take a retro company's name and put a console name on it. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, so this is probably a con thing. This is a thing that they keep doing, and it keeps working in a way. And what's interesting about the Intellivision and why people actually believed it is because it had a person's reputation on the line. That was Tommy Tallarico. He put his reputation on the line. part of me thinks, now this is all speculation and conspiracy theory, and so just ignore this or just have fun with it. I don't really care. What if this person's like, wow, I made a lot of money off this chameleon thing. Maybe we can try this within television. And maybe he couldn't get it to work, but maybe he was able to convince Tallarico to take it on, and then he joined the team because he knew that this was going to make a lot of money without ever releasing a single product. I don't know. I don't want to imply that any of this illegal stuff is going on. Kind of like read around. I have not read enough information to state anything factually. I just find it kind of curious, and I kind of wanted to hear what your guys' take on it. Now, I'm sorry, I know I have mostly not talked about Sega, but now I'm finally going to go into the meat of the video, which is probably going to be the shortest part. But how could Sega sneak back into the hardware market? Now, if Sega were to just release like basically an Xbox One X or Xbox Series X clone and called it the Sega, and just release it like that, and I said Xbox Series X not because it's literally an Xbox, but what I mean is the specs is around that or the PS5. They would fail. It would be abysmal. There's no way they can compete with them. They would have to play catch up. It's already too late. They were to release a Switch clone. I'm sorry, Sega, but you're not Nintendo, and you don't have enough studios, and you don't have enough partnerships, and people are not going to want to put games on your console. So the only way to make it in this market is to sneak in. You gotta Trojan horse your way to get into the market. One fun way that I thought of is look at the arcade 1-ups. People are buying them and kind of having a little bit of buyer's remorse because, I think that's the right word, right? Buyer's remorse? Whatever. Because they buy it and there's only 3 games in it. They want more games in it. So a lot of people have been throwing Raspberry Pis in them. A lot of people are scared to do that, so they go to a third party and they end up paying, I don't know, like an overpriced modded arcade 1-up, and they're satisfied. A company like Sega could totally come in, put an ARM chip that's slightly above the Switch or something like that, future-proof it, so maybe a little bit more, and just put every game in the Sega catalog on it, okay? And then release it with the biggest games and create a brand new system seller for that game that comes packaged with it. And then over the first year, just I don't want to say trickle, maybe once a week, drop a couple games. And then hopefully the catalog gets bigger, and everyone who buys this just for the arcade experience at home will now technically have a console. You can bring in third-party publishers in, and they can publish their games. A bunch of indie games dropped on an arcade unit. Cool, why not? Okay, people will slowly build up their library, and then boom, now they have a library on a Sega console. Now you can release a arcade-less version, and boom, you're in the console market. Congratulations, Sega, you've made it. You're back in. Dreamcast too, except don't call it that. I think this would be cool only because Sega's history is in arcades. I mean, that's how Sega was founded. But I'm not going to go in the history of Sega. Maybe I'll do a video on that. That would actually be pretty cool. Just, Sega, make sure that nobody sketchy gets involved, because it seems like all these companies keep getting sketchy people involved and everything collapses. But imagine that. Sega has an opportunity to not only make games, because they make games for third party, but they are now encouraged to make system sellers. And my argument has, the reason why the quality of Sega games go down is because they don't need to make the games good enough to push consoles. They only need to make the games marketable enough to sell. And that's why quality goes down. That's why if Nintendo were to become a third-party publisher, their games would eventually start to suck. So there's that. But once again, looking at the history of how all the other all the other smaller companies trying to become consoles come into the markets, I don't think it's a good idea for Sega. I think it's a horrible idea for Sega. I think it's terrible PR. It'll make them look bad, and it will flop abysmally. I actually realized I forgot to talk about the Evercade. A lot of people love the Evercade, have positive feelings about it. I'm sorry, I look at that and I think I don't need a cartridge-based system. It's not for me. I totally understand that people like the Evercade. All the power to you. Keep enjoying your Evercade. Anyways, this video has went on longer than expected. I guess I had a lot to say. I kind of want to go through a couple comments and answer them in video. And I've already answered these comments in obviously the comment section, but it's fun to go through them a little bit. So first comments, Ethan, number. Make it so the mouth can move. Oh yeah, this was in discussion about Sonic's mouth because I kind of prefer it mid-mouth, but I see other people gave their takes on. Anyways, I'll get to the comments. So Ethan, number says, make it so the mouth can move to any part of his muzzle and not just the side. Yes, I totally agree with that. When I say middle mouth, I also mean he still has that ability to smirk, because that's obviously part of Sonic's look. I mean, come on. But I totally agree with you. And then Framemate's Real, I think they're responding to the name of the title of the video, which was, does Sonic need a model refresh? And I say yes. Agree with you, because that's literally what the video is about. Okay, and then Ink Chariot said, we've had pretty much the same Sonic model for 12 years. I think it's time for a change of pace. They don't even use Sonic eyebrows to express his emotions anymore. Middle mouth just feels natural. And then he goes on about his limbs and joints don't bend 90 degrees. He has noodle arms, and long quills are more anime feel. Now, I want to mention the eyebrows thing. Yes, Sonic's eyebrows used to be fully taken advantage of, and I forgot about that until I saw the Sonic 2 trailer. Totally stoked for that, because they know how to animate Sonic, and they're doing a great job. Aiden Showers mentions that the side mouth actually helps with animating Sonic from different angles and adds some expression, whereas the middle mouth limits that. Yes, I agree with that, because if it's a middle mouth, it's literally just in the middle, and you can kind of go crazy with the side mouth. But the thing about it was that I don't like the side mouth being stuck there. So I think the first comment I mentioned says it better than I did, honestly. Now, this comment goes on to mention realistic fur and better body proportions, and yes, please do that. And last comments, there was a lot more comments, but I know I'm running out of time. Has to do with the Chow Garden video. It says, I need and this comes from Beast MD. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the other names. I'll be sure to put the pictures on this video. I need the Chow Garden back so badly. It sucks because I don't really like the Wisp. But just for continuity purposes, I'd hate to see them leave for no reason. Maybe Wisp can power up Chow or something like that. Yes, bring in the old, bring in the new, and merge it together to work well together. I love that, honestly. I love that idea. I never even really thought about that. You can, I don't know, continue doing the body parts with the animals, and give your Chow gorilla arms and all that stuff, but then make them like, I don't know, like water-based, because it's like a water wisp or electric wisp. I'm sorry, I don't really know the wisp names. I'm not really that into the wisp, but I hope you understand what I'm implying there. Well, anyways, I'll end the video there. If you guys want to talk about anything of Sega, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Leave a comment down below about a potential Sega console, why they should or shouldn't do it. And there's a lot of Sega games that I don't have a chance to go over. So if you want to leave your review of any Sonic game, and I will read it on this channel, or anything else, feel free to leave a comment, or let me know on Twitter. You can follow me at twitter.com/Linzer22. And this has been an episode of Sega Break. I will see you guys next time.